Today, the global flow of goods, the ships crossing oceans, the planes flying above continents, the trucks on highways, begins to slow, shift, and realign. In today's world, national borders matter again. Trade routes are redrawn, and where Made in America replaces Made in China. It is transport and distribution in a Trump world, a world shaped by protectionism, tariffs, and a new kind of economic nationalism. Donald Trump's economic vision, summarized in one phrase, America First, aims to bring production and jobs back home. During his first reign as the President of the United States, tariffs were used not just as an economic tool, but as a weapon in global negotiations. Countries such as China, Mexico, and even the European Union felt the effects. In a Trump world, this strategy expands. Manufacturing reshoring becomes policy. Trade agreements are re-evaluated, and global logistics must adapt. The ripple effect? The very arteries of global trade, ports, shipping routes, and warehouses start to reorganize new political priorities. Modern logistics is built on one principle: efficiency through global integration. Parts made in Vietnam, assembled in China, and sold in the European Union. Modern logistics depends on open borders, low tariffs, and stable trade relations to be efficient. A Trump-style world changes that. Tariffs raise costs, supply routes shorten, and companies begin moving production closer to their customers. We see companies shorter their supply routes, shifting factories from Asia to Mexico, Eastern Europe, or the American Midwest. For the global transport network, this refers to lower long-distance ocean shipments, but higher regional trucking, rail freight, and cross-border logistics. When global systems change, not everyone wins. The winners in a Trump world might be domestic logistics companies, US rail operators, trucking firms, and port authorities. More investment flows into US infrastructure, creating demand for warehouse construction and distribution centers closer to consumers. But the losers could be the major global shipping lines, Maersk, MSC, or CMA CGM, which depend on high-volume international trade. When fewer goods cross oceans, their business model faces turbulence. A shift to a more nationalist trade policy by the United States will lead to a huge influx of domestic infrastructure projects. Rebuilding highways, funding the expansion of large ports like Houston or Savannah, and ultimately, investing in more efficient means of transporting goods across the nation would all be topics of discussion. Suddenly, all those American manufacturing centers would require entirely new logistical systems to effectively transport their products from one state to another. A significant increase in truck traffic, significant new rail investment, and a strong push for warehouse automation will likely characterize this new period. Meanwhile, the international scene would likely get a lot choppier. Instead of the one big, unified global supply chain we've gotten used to, we'd probably see a patchwork of regional networks pop up. North America would trade mostly within the USMCA, Europe would keep to the EU, and Asia would focus on its own sphere. Globalization would not die. Instead, it would adapt. Regionalism would become the main focus. However, transportation is not a vacuum. Logistics and politics are closely related. The worldwide circulation of commodities, from steel to lithium, is disturbed if the United States raises tariffs on China or restricts imports of electronics and electric cars. Countries that rely on US exports must find alternative markets or risk seeing a slowdown in their economies. On the other hand, countries that are politically closer to the United States, such as Mexico, Canada, or even India, can profit from increased trade connections and production shifts. In summary, the worldwide map of alliances starts to resemble the global map of transportation. As of April 5, 2025, the United States moved from a targeted tariff system to a universal one. A baseline tariff of 10% now applies to imports from nearly all trading partners. Furthermore, for 57 nations deemed to have non-reciprocal practices, this baseline has been replaced by punitive rates, ranging from 20% for the European Union to substantially higher reciprocal rates for nations such as Vietnam and Thailand. In North America, despite the USMCA, we have seen the imposition of 25% tariffs on most goods from Mexico and Canada, with specific carve-outs only for certain sectors such as Canadian energy. What does the data tell us about the impact? To answer this, we look to the Tax Foundation, whose economic modelling treats these tariffs as what they functionally are, a consumption tax. Their analysis confirms that these costs are not absorbed by foreign exporters, but are passed through to domestic buyers. The data indicate that in 2025 alone, this tariff schedule has imposed an average additional cost of $1,200 per American household. By 2026, without policy adjustment, this burden is projected to rise to $1,600. Beyond immediate costs, we must look at the structural damage to growth. The Penn-Wharton budget model, PWBM, has run extensive long-run simulations on this specific tariff regime. Their findings are stark. The model projects that over the long term, these barriers will reduce the United States gross domestic product by approximately 6%. More critically for the American worker, the suppression of economic efficiency is projected to lower wages by 5% compared to a baseline economy without these tariffs. Finally, we must address the sector-specific fallout. While the stated goal was industrial revitalization, data from the Peterson Institute for International Economics, PIIE, reveals a double squeeze on our core industries. Their analysis shows that US agriculture and durable manufacturing have suffered disproportionately. This is driven by two scientifically observable factors. First, the increased cost of imported intermediate parts makes US manufacturing less competitive globally. Second, retaliatory measures from trading partners have specifically targeted American agricultural exports, depressing demand. In conclusion, the economic evidence is clear. While the Liberation Day tariffs have altered trade flows, rigorous modelling confirms they have done so at the cost of 6% of our potential GDP, a 5% reduction in real wages, and a direct tax of $1,200 on the average family this year. Policy may be driven by intent, but economies are driven by these numbers.